people think they've got a right to protest. Of course they do. But they are causing a lot of problems, not only for the people who are trying to get around London, but for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are right. Everybody does have a right to protest, but that right does not extend to disrupting people's lives, disrupting their livelihoods, and particularly from a policing perspective, drawing in officers from communities in London where they should and could be working on a daily basis.
No, indeed. I got a lot of questions yesterday from people on Twitter and also from people ringing into the show saying, at what point does the kind of obstruction that they're taking part in become an offence, and when can you arrest them for that?
We've been really clear that the activity of the protesters this time is unlawful.
Yeah.
So obstruction of the highway is an offence. There is a stated case that actually permits protest to obstruct the highway, but because of the level of disruption, the significance and the serious nature of that disruption, we put conditions on the protest yesterday under the Public Order Act, which means anybody protesting outside of Trafalgar Square is committing a criminal offence and they're liable to arrest.
And the problem for you, I presume, is the sheer numbers. I was reading some stories in the Times today about some of the things that happened yesterday. You know, for example, some of the equipment that's been smuggled into Trafalgar Square. There was a car that was being guarded by 2 police officers, but they got distracted by somebody asking for directions. You know, there's so much going on, and I'm not blaming the police for any of this because it's a very difficult job that you guys are doing. But it's almost as though we need to come up with a different form of attack, if you like.
Well, it's a really complex operation for us. So we are using every piece of legislation currently available to us to deal with the unlawful activity that we're encountering. But it takes time. When people go limp on arrest, it takes at least 4 officers to take them away. They have to be processed through custody. That takes additional time. But also where we've seen tents, you know, we are clearing a lot of tents. We've cleared 80 tonnes worth of equipment to date.
And where has that gone?
So that's all storage because it's all evidence of offences. So that's all being stored at our property stores. But people are locked on. They're glued together. They've got big, thick D-locks around their necks. It's not a quick process.
No.
And obviously, once we've then taken the road, we have to maintain a presence so that we can sustain our presence there.
And once you do arrest them, you probably haven't got that much room. I know that you've opened up a few old mothballed custody suites in order to put them in somewhere, but you can't hold them for long, presumably.
Well, we are absolutely determined that people who commit offences go through the criminal justice system. You'll know from April, where we arrested over 1,100 people, nearly 900 people were charged, and 250 have now got criminal convictions as they're going through court. But of course, it does put further demand on our custody suite, but we're a big organisation. We will cope. We have got ways of escalating and managing that throughput through our custody suites.
And how did it go last night? Because you have arrested, I think, a few hundred, maybe 600 people so far. In terms of clearing areas, I'm told that you have cleared a lot of Westminster. Are you confident that is going to stay, that you can hold the line on that?
Yeah, so we've asked for officers from around the country to come and help us. We've brought additional resource in, which is part of that. We obviously have to prioritise where our activity takes place. The original intention of Extinction Rebellion was 12 sites around Westminster. By last night, they only had 6 remaining. We've got Lambeth Bridge and Westminster Bridge open, so we've conducted an awful lot of activity because there are other priorities for us as well. We still have to police the rest of London, but we've got other big events with the half marathon and the state opening of Parliament that we've also got to contend with.
Well, that's the big worry, isn't it? The state opening of Parliament on Monday. They're vowing to sort of, disrupt that in some way, shape or form. Clearly, the Queen needs to get to Parliament. I mean, how confident are you that that's going to go smoothly?
Very.
Are you?
It's a big security operation.
I should
for
say
us.
you're smiling quite confidently as you say that.
I'm happy that the state opening of Parliament will take place.
There were some people yesterday hoping that the Queen's Guard could somehow move them slightly more robustly than you're allowed to, but I suppose you couldn't comment on that.
No, and obviously we have a thorough plan in place for Monday.
Good. And what about City Airport? Because that's where they're planning to attack tomorrow. They say if they can't get inside the airport... I mean, I wonder whether these people have got some kind of delusions of grandeur and they think that they're actually in Hong Kong, because somebody said to me today, in Hong Kong they're demonstrating against communism. Here they're demonstrating to get it, which is rather ironic, I think. But can you stop them getting to City Airport?
Well, as with any protest, we will be doing everything we can to minimise that disruption. There is no question question that they will look to try and disrupt the city airport as far as they can. Again, we have a very robust plan in place. We're engaged with them. We're explaining the disruption. They're not listening to us at the moment, but we are determined that our policing response will be much like you've seen to date, which is robust, arresting people and clearing disruption away.
One of the questions I've had for officers like yourself in the past is, can you not issue them with some kind of, I know this is more of a judicial punishment, but can you not issue them with a sort of almost like a football banning order from coming into the centre of London and disrupting it in the same way that they have been arrested for and charged?
The simple answer to that is no. We don't have that legislation.
Would that be useful?
Well, certainly we've been in consultation with the Home Office following April about legislation that would assist us in managing large-scale protest. A lot of the legislation was written back in the 80s, and protest has moved on. The tactics are different now. And I
Police
think it's
tactics have certainly changed, because in the 80s there was a bit of head cracking going on.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely right. The way we police in this country is by consent. We've got a really effective police service. We do need to be robust, but we have to work within the law. It would be wholly inappropriate for us to conduct activity that's unlawful, and we have to use force commensurate with what we're dealing with.
Yeah, right. I mean, I remember, for example, the day that Boris Johnson was driving to Buckingham Palace, and there was a police motorcycle officer who was a lot more robust than anybody had ever seen when those Greenpeace people stood in front of the prime ministerial car. And most people that I know were going, good on you, give them a good shove. And I know that, you can't sit there and say that's what we'd like to do more of, but sometimes I wonder if these protesters thought that their punishment was going to be worse, that their treatment was going to be not quite so nice, that they might think twice about coming in from Berkshire to demonstrate on Mummy's day off.
And I don't think that I would describe our approach as soft or nice, but we should be engaging people and treating them with respect. That's how we police in this country. That doesn't stop us being robust. You mentioned Boris Johnson there. I mean, obviously, depending on the situation that we're encountered with, we will use different levels of force and different levels of tactics.
Sure. And as far as sort of what you've learned, you've clearly changed your tactics from April. You've made them more robust, as you said. What are you learning from this particular moment? Because I'm slightly worried, as many people are, that this will go on for a while, because their message is that we're not paying attention, which is wrong. Their message is that the world is going to die, which is wrong. Their message is kind of deluded, but I don't see that changing. So I see more of these protests rather than fewer.
Well, I'm not here to comment on the rights or wrong of protest. Obviously, the police have to maintain that neutral line down the middle. There's no question that dealing with this type of protest is a challenge for the police service. As I say, we've had those conversations about legislation. But I think we have taken a different response. What we've done differently is we've been on the front foot. We've been very clear that the protest is unlawful, and we are arresting really significant numbers. Over half in 2 days than we arrested over the whole 2-week period last time round. But it isn't a quick process, and it won't be a quick process because of the things that we're facing and the level of resource that it sucks in.
Sure. And what about the 2 weeks that they say they want to demonstrate for? Are you able to tell us whether that's going to be cut short, whether it's going to end before this week or what?
I'm not going to promise that we will eliminate all disruption. There are a significant number of protesters around. Our aim is to minimise that disruption, and the earlier we can stop that disruption, the better.
Because I live in East London, right? I've got to go out for dinner in South West London on Thursday night. Any chance of a police escort so I can get through the crusty
chance
brigade?
at all.
Thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.
That is Deputy Assistant Commissioner Laurence Taylor from the Met Police. Keep up the great work, because the people who vote in this country, the people who pay you the taxes in this country, are absolutely behind you. Thanks very much for coming in.